Night with Josh Hinnick.
It's good!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort studio, here's Josh Hinnick.
Welcome back from Memorial Day weekend here. Josh Hinnick hanging out with you. 97.3 ESPN. Phillies return from their road trip, 7-1 road trip. Also, the Eagles start OTAs. Yes, they are back on the field this week. We'll get to all that and more right here on 97.3 ESPN. You guys can join the conversation as well. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. You know, there's a poll question that Mike Gill put up on the Twitter X platform. I retweeted it at Josh Hennig. And we'll touch on that as well because I think it's very clear that it's not just the people voting in the poll question, but it seems like everyone seems to understand what is needed for this team. We'll get the result of the poll question in just a bit, but I want to touch on really quick about the weekend for the Phillies because going 7-1 on a road trip in and of itself is an accomplishment. And as I was telling Mike Gill earlier on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN, I hate this narrative that's being put out there by some people that, well, they only beat the Rockies and the A's. Well, you know, they beat a bunch of bad teams. Here's the problem. You would be criticizing the Phillies if they didn't beat the bad teams. It's a no-win situation for these teams. They beat the bad teams. You did your job. You don't beat the bad teams. You're a bad baseball team. So, to me, I think that type of thinking is frivolous. We give them credit for getting the job done. Period. End of story. That's how I look at it. So, for me, I'm glad the Phillies went and got the job done. And frankly, they probably could have gone 8-0 if things played out a little bit differently in the game yesterday. So, to me, I think that this road trip was overall a positive for Philadelphia, not just because of the wins, but because they are in two very different environments. They found ways to win games that, in theory, they could have, maybe shouldn't have won. You know, for those who didn't hear that, the story over the weekend was apparently multiple pitchers were unhappy with the mound in Sacramento. And there was an argument made by some people over the weekend that you look at the pitchers who pitched well in Oakland. Most of them are guys who have pitched in the minor leagues in recent years, compared to guys like Zach Wheeler, who's Jordan Romano, who have mostly pitched in the majors. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that Zach Wheeler was very vocal after the game on Friday night. Christopher Sanchez expressed his frustrations after the game on Saturday, and you can surmise that Romano probably was not comfortable on the mound either with the way how poorly he pitched on his Friday night. So, for whatever reason, the Phillies pitchers did have some issues. You saw Luzardo have massive control problems at the beginning of his game on Sunday afternoon. So, I'm not going to read too much into what we saw over the weekend. What I saw over the weekend I felt was fascinating, and I mentioned this to a couple of people when I was talking to people out and about on Sunday, which was, you know, Mason Miller has been so hyped up by so many people around the sport of baseball that for Mason Miller to go out there and pitch the way he did kind of makes you wonder, is he really going to be worth everything they ask for of him? You're talking about a guy who pitched all 3 games against the Phillies. And in the first 2 games, he allowed 4 runs. 3 on Friday, 1 on Saturday. And frankly, if Rojas isn't allowed to steal that base on Sunday and get thrown out when he did, I mean, who knows how differently that game plays out. Now, some people are saying that, Mason Miller didn't pitch for 6 days before the 3 games against the Phillies. Maybe so, but am I supposed to believe it's just an accident that the A's brought out their young closer 3 straight games against the Phillies? I think they did it because they wanted the Phillies to go look at him. Because I think they think the Phillies have interest in trading for this guy. And if I'm Philadelphia, I'm telling the A's, hey man, we like Mason Miller, but whatever you think he's worth, he ain't that. Mason Miller has a 5.79 ERA this year. That is not a guy that you give up 3-4 prospects for. The A's should have traded him last year when his value was at its highest. Now, it's not as high. And for a young, talented guy like him, because he has all the tools, he has all the intangibles when it comes to being a great pitcher at the major league level. He does have 3 games this year already with 2 or more runs allowed. That's why his ERA is bloated the way it is. So you can argue that maybe the ERA is not a true betrayal or not a true sample of who he is. But when you're talking about a guy who was an all-star pitcher last year, considered one of the best young pitching prospects in all of baseball at one point, who came up to the A's, and he has 12 earned runs in 18 and 2/3 innings pitched, along with 16 hits in those 18 and 2/3 innings pitched. If you're Philadelphia, you have a great argument where you can turn to the A's and say, yeah, I'm not going to give you an arm and a leg for this guy. I'll give you something for him, but I'm not giving you an arm and a leg. And frankly, if the conversation is Justin Crawford for Mason Miller, I think it's worth having a conversation. Because even if Mason Miller is not an elite pitcher, he is still better than every right-handed pitcher in your bullpen right now. And that includes Jordan Romano. So for me, I look at this weekend as a lot of positives, and I look at it as now you got some leverage over a guy like Miller, where you can go to the A's and say, look, we've seen him firsthand. You brought him out 3 games against us. We'll give you a player or 2 for him, but we're not giving you up a ton for this guy. So it might have been more than the win that you thought it was this weekend. The other side of the Phillies weekend that we got to touch on here, Josh Henning hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Kyle Schwarber continues to hit. And this guy is turning into the team's most valuable player. And this is not I'm not diminishing Harper's value or anyone else. But you're talking about a guy right now who, in the last 7 days, he has 2 homers, 4 RBI, an OPS of 1.064. If you're wondering, that's really good, by the way. And he's the only guy on the team with double-digit home runs. Schwarber's having a phenomenal year. And as the season progresses, you're watching a guy who's probably going to hit 50 home runs. He's got 18 right now. The second guy on the team is Harper with 8. That's a 10 home run difference. By the way, most RBI on the team, 40. Slugging percentage, he's got the best on the team, 576. He's having a great year. Oh, and the most walks as well, 41. There was a time that if you asked who is the most important hitter on the Phillies, you would have said Harper year in and year out. But for this year, for 2025, Schwarber has turned out to be the most valuable player on this team. Dollar for dollar, he is the one. And I think as the year progresses, you have to look at the way he's hitting behind Harper, the way Trey Turner has turned things around. You know, Turner, after a very rough start to the year, Turner deserves a lot of credit because he has found his way as a hitter. If you look at just the month of May for Trey Turner, just the month of May, he's batting .340. His on base percentage is almost 37%. The guy is almost on base 4 out of every 10 at bats. And by the way, 8 stolen bases this month. 12 RBI. This is kind of what, this is a lot closer to what you were paying for from Trey Turner. Now, look, I don't know if he will always hit this well, but he deserves a lot of credit, too, for the Phillies' success in recent weeks. And by the way, another guy who has played well recently is getting rewarded. If you didn't see tonight's batting lineup, Alec Boehm has been moved up in the lineup. Boehm is now hitting 5th. He had been batting 7th and 8th for weeks. Now he's ahead of Castellanos and Kepler and Real Muto. Alec Boehm deserves a hat tip. He deserves some recognition. Because, for a guy at a horrible start to the year, for the month of May, he has turned it around. He has shown himself to be closer to the guy that we saw for the first half of last year than last month. .341 batting average for Alec Boehm this month. Don't forget, he's got 12 RBI as well. And he's finally hit the home run stroke. 4 homers this month. And you could argue, more importantly than anything else, his defense hasn't suffered. You know, while Trey Turner has frustrated many of us with his dumb errors. I mean, good grief, Trey Turner. Just field the ball. Dude. Alec Boehm, he's making the right decision almost every single time. And you know what? He got rewarded for it. He's now the 5-hole hitter behind Kyle Schwarber. Josh Henning live in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. We'll check back with the text board coming up the other side. How do you guys feel about the Phillies after their road trip? They are back in action tonight. Spencer Strider going for the Atlanta Braves. He will be facing off with a guy that I think is making a very strong case to have a sustained spot in the rotation the rest of this year, Ranger Suarez. What do I mean by that? We'll get into that coming up next, as well as Eagles at OTAs. What are we watching for this week? All that and more still to come. Josh Hennig back from Memorial Day weekend here on 97.3 ESPN.
Get ready for the ultimate thrill when Atlantic City hosts War at the Shore, sponsored by North Beach AC, Sunday, June 8th. Witness the adrenaline-pumping, high-powered boats race through the Atlantic Ocean from any of the North Beach locations. Feel the roar of the engines, the splash of the waves, and the excitement in the air. Sunday, June 8th for War at the Shore, sponsored by North Beach AC. For more information, visit AtlanticCityNorthBeach.com.
This Memorial Day, turn up the heat with the Home Depot. Find the perfect grill and patio set to keep the cookouts coming all season long. Grill up a feast with the Next Grill 4-burner gas grill, only $229. And complete your space with the stylish Glen Ridge Falls 7-piece dining set, now on special buy for just $499 with free delivery. Take your Memorial Day cookout to the next level all summer long with the Home Depot. See homedepot.com/delivery for more details.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. so I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
If you have a lot of shopping to do for summer, then you're actually in luck. Because at Macy's, the latest designer trends are here now. From swim and sandals to match sets and linen suits, all for 20% off. But get this, spend $100 and get 25% off. Spend $200 and get 30% off. 30%. So the bigger your summer, the better. Because the more you buy, the more you save. But hurry, it all starts Thursday at Macy's. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
At Tropical Smoothie Cafe, summer is our season, and we're kicking it off with free smoothies. Wear your flip-flops, head into your local cafe, and join the free smoothie party for National Flip-Flop Day on Wednesday, May 28th from 2 to 7 p.m. Start your summer with a refreshing and free 12-ounce Sunrise Sunset smoothie. Yeah, it's really that easy. Summer is here at Tropical Smoothie Cafe. It's tropic time. Terms and conditions apply.
When you switch to Progressive, you could save bundling your home and auto. Then you could put that money towards some of the surprisingly more expensive things in life.
May I help you? I just wanted to request a late checkout, please.
Of course. That's $30 per hour for up to 4 hours.
Huh. Okay, but if you can offer a late checkout, then that probably means no one is staying in that room. So if it's empty, maybe I can just stay a few extra hours.
Oh, aren't you adorable?
Life costs a lot, so bundle and you could save with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
This Memorial Day, turn up the heat with the Home Depot. Find the perfect grill and patio set to keep the cookouts coming all season long. Grill up a feast with the Next Grill 4-burner gas grill, only $229. And complete your space with the stylish Glen Ridge Falls 7-piece dining set, now on special buy for just $499 with free delivery. Take your Memorial Day cookout to the next level all summer long with the Home Depot. See homedepot.com/delivery for more details.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. Phillies back from a 7-game road trip. They'll face the Atlanta Braves tonight. They went 6-1 on the trip. They did lose to the A's in Sacramento on Sunday. That snapped a 9-game win streak. Ranger Suarez gets the start tonight for the Phillies, who are on top of the NL East. Suarez is 3-0, an ERA of 3.70. Spencer Strider, recently activated from the injured list, will go for the Braves. He's making his 3rd start of the season. NBA playoffs, Knicks and Pacers tonight, Game 4 in Indianapolis. Indiana leading the series 2-1, but the Knicks are coming off a road win in Game 3. In fact, the road team has won the first 3 games of this series. Western Conference Finals, Oklahoma City a win away from the NBA Finals. They beat Minnesota in Game 4, 128-126. Game 5 in Oklahoma City on Wednesday. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
2 guys drove to work. Neither guy wore a seatbelt. One guy got a ticket. One guy didn't. The same 2 guys drove home. One guy wore his seatbelt. One guy didn't. One guy made it home. The guy not wearing his seatbelt didn't. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Weather in a word for tomorrow, wet. Showers will creep into South Jersey tonight. Low temperature will dip to around 54 degrees. And then tomorrow, grab the umbrella. Periods of rain and drizzle expected throughout the day. It's going to be one of those cloudy, breezy, cool days with a high of only 58. Showers should wrap up Thursday morning. Then we'll see peaks of sun in the afternoon, high 73. More rain showers Friday. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
Anyone can struggle with addiction. And when you're struggling, there's no shame in getting help.
Call 844-REACH-NJ. Talk to a counselor for confidential addiction help and see if you're eligible for no-cost treatment. 844-REACH-NJ from New Jersey Human Services.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
We're checking on the text board at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. See, a couple of Phillies updates I want to hit on. Number one, Aaron Nola did throw off of flat ground and a mound today. Remember, he was supposed to throw over the weekend, but they pushed back his day to get some throwing in. So at least we know he's able to do some today. That is a good sign for the Phillies. Also, on the Phillies' radar is the fact that while Aaron Nola is still injured, it will continue to be Taijuan Walker. The Phillies manager Rob Thompson said today that the expectation that Andrew Painter will come up in July. So don't expect Andrew Painter anytime soon. He is a mid to late July prospective call-up. No McAble either. McAble will continue to pitch at AAA. So, for whatever reason, the Phillies are sticking with Taijuan Walker as their emergency starter until Aaron Nola comes back. I find it interesting, though, because this is a guy in Walker who the Phillies previously had said, we want to see what he looks like in more bullpen situations. And now they are in a position where they could bring up McAble. They could bring him into the fold for the next week or two. But they decided no. They're going to stick with Taijuan Walker. They're going to stick with the bullpen as is. Which is why Mike Gill's poll question, you can check it out at Josh Hennig, at Mike Gill Show, at 973 ESPN, all on the Twitter X platform. If the Phillies need to make one trade, what do they need to get? That need being the highlight. 81% say bullpen arm. 13% say center field upgrade over Marsh and Rojas. And the other two options are tied for third, that being a left field upgrade over Kepler or other. Of course, you could argue what the other could be. Maybe it's replacing Stott at second base. Conversation for another day. But people know what's wrong with this team. What's wrong with this team is the bullpen needs help. And to me, it's not specifically Mason Miller, although I wouldn't be against Mason Miller coming in and helping this bullpen. It's about the fact that this team, as currently constructed, as a whole, is not good enough to win a championship. You're not winning a championship with that bullpen that is barely above average overall. You're not winning a championship with that lineup that is basically all the talent and ability that consistently shows up as concentrated around four men. Which is why I do think it's interesting that the upgrade of center field was the second choice for a lot of voters on the poll question. Because center field it's treated like it is the obvious, right? We treat center field like, Marsh, Rojas, and we shake our fists at the sky. But the reality is that I don't know if you're acquiring someone who is going to make a significant enough of a difference who is a center fielder. Look, I get Justin Crawford is playing well at AAA, and I know there's some of you out there listening to the sound of my voice on 97.3 ESPN who are saying, come on, Josh, bring up the young guy. He is not having a significant impact on this team to make the lineup that much better. He's just a better version of Marsh at this point. Crawford is about 2-3 years away from really being the best version of himself. So I don't look at Crawford as the answer either. I look at this team and I say bullpen is number one for sure. But if you're going to upgrade another position, whether it's center field, left field, whatever position, it's got to be a significant upgrade. Because what has been the damnation of this team over the last few years? 2022 World Series, 2023 NLCS, 2024 NLDS. It has consistently been the same problem. Your best hitters go cold, their bats go silent, and you need someone who's going to be able to manufacture some offense at times. And the problem is that the Phillies have to make a difficult decision. Are they going to be willing to get both an upgrade for the bullpen and an upgrade for the lineup? Are they willing to give up that type of... Are they willing to give up what is needed to get those kind of players? Like I was going to say the capital, but I don't think that's a fair way to describe it because these are human beings. You know, are they willing to give up that many players to get what is necessary? Whatever player you want to name, it's not coming cheap. It's not coming easy. Okay? Teams are going to want to take advantage of you. They know that you are desperate. And they also know, like you know, that Justin Crawford is not coming up here and hitting 8 homers and driving in 20 RBI over the course of 40 games. Or even 60 games for that matter. So there are still some decisions that Phillies have to make. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973, Shaner and EHT chimes in. He says the Phillies need bullpen. They need a closer. I missed the days of a setup man and a closer. Remember Madsen and Lidge? It was a thing in Major League Baseball. Enter Sandman. Where did this strategy go league-wide? It's all by committees, it seems like. Am I alone in this? Says Shaner and EHT. Well, Shaner, you're not alone. There is an extreme number of teams that have gotten away from the traditional closer. Now, I will say, Shaner, and part of it is not baseball's fault. It's the pitcher's fault. These pitchers don't want to be closers. They want to be starters. And so the tradition of being the guy who wants the ball in your hand to close a game, that energy has dissipated. When you look around Major League Baseball at the top closers in terms of number of saves this year, Andres Munoz from Seattle, Robert Suarez from San Diego, Kyle Finnegan of the Washington Nationals, Carlos Estevez, remember him? He's now with the Kansas City Royals. Josh Hader of the Houston Astros, Emilio Pagan of the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, the aforementioned Mason Miller are the main pitchers who have consistently been able to close games this season. So if I'm the Phillies, I got to make some tough decisions. Because you're right, Shaner. They need somebody. They need something. You know, Ryan Helsley has 10 saves this year. Is that a legitimate guy to get? And if they get him, is he even the closer? Do they look at Romano and see him as the closer and Helsley as the setup man? How does that whole process go into this? Are the Phillies going to be a team that just collects arms? Or are they going to be a team that actually has remember the bridge to Lidge, right? Because I told Mike Gill earlier on 97.3 ESPN, right here, Josh Hennig hanging out with you in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. I said it earlier today. When the non-star bullpen arms for the Phillies came into the games, Scott Air, Clay Condrey, when those guys were coming in the games, you were not sweating and saying, oh no, here we go. You were saying, all right, we got this. Even Brett Myers, remember, he became a closer for a bit. And you had confidence in him. outside of Matt Strahm, who on earth do you have confidence in this bullpen? And the answer is none. So they need more for sure. And Shaner, you're not alone. There's many of us who look around and say, where did all the closers go? And I feel like I know the answer. The closers went the way of people's egos. Dan in EHC chimes in at 609-403-0973. He says, Dan, he says, as currently constructed, can the Phillies win a title? Dan EHT, the answer is no. They need more. They need more. They need another hitter, specifically a right-handed bat. And they need another bullpen pitcher, specifically a right-handed pitcher. Because they want to get to the postseason, someone is going to that bullpen. And it's not Luzardo, and it's not Ranger Suarez. It's somebody. Sanchez, Suarez, somebody's going to that bullpen. So if you're Philadelphia, you got to make sure that when you're going to that bullpen, you're not calling in Carlos Hernandez or Jose Ruiz. It's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Phillies begin a 3-game series with the Atlanta Braves tonight at home as they return from their 7-game road trip. You know, what's interesting with the Phillies as well on this road trip is it was the fact that they had to play in 2 very different stadiums. And they found a way to be productive every step of the way. You got to give them credit for that. You got to give the Phillies credit for finding a way to get it done throughout the whole road trip. And now they got to come against a Braves team that's tough, followed by a Brewers team that's tough. Doing it at home. So that is the good news for the Philadelphia Phillies. All right, coming up in just a bit, we're going to get back into a little NFL talk, state of the Eagles at OTAs, and an ESPN NBA insider gave a very interesting perspective on the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
With GMF financing, qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
It's Bennett Chevrolet's Memorial Day blowout with prices that won't be beat. That's right, Bennett Chevrolet selling new Chevys at GM supplier employee prices. And you keep all the rebates, saving you as much as 20%. Who else can make an offer this good? Nobody. That's who. Get to Bennett Chevy's Memorial Day blowout all this month and save up to 20% on new vehicles with GM supplier employee pricing. And you keep all the rebates. Plus, you'll save even more with Bennett's available 0% financing. And if you're looking for your best deal on pre-owned, Bennett's paying a minimum $10,000 for any trade, no matter the mileage or condition. You'll get at least $10,000 towards any pre-owned. Imagine how much more Bennett pays for a good trade. And there's no need to negotiate. Never any haggles or hassles, because our non-commissioned sales team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Together, let's drive. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
It's time to make your yard the best on the block with Memorial Day savings at the Home Depot. Start by keeping the weeds at bay with Earthgrow mulch, now 4 for $10. Then keep your garden thriving with Miracle Grow garden soil, now on special buy, 4 for $10. Give your neighbors yard envy all summer long with Memorial Day savings going on now at the Home Depot.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, let's talk ED, because millions of men experience it, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. Well, Hims can help. Through Hims.com, you can get a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. It all starts with an online intake form. Get started at hims.com/radio, and from there, a medical provider licensed in your state will determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find the ED treatment that fits your needs with options up to 95% less than the brand names. Millions of men experience ED, but Hims can help. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit. HIMS.com/RADIO.
Check engine, ABS, or maintenance light on? Take the guesswork out of your warning lights with O'Reilly Veriscan. The service is free and provides a report with solutions verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we could recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Get ready for the ultimate thrill when Atlantic City hosts War at the Shore, sponsored by North Beach AC, Sunday, June 8th. Witness the adrenaline-pumping, high-powered boats race through the Atlantic Ocean from any of the North Beach locations. Feel the roar of the engines, the splash of the waves, and the excitement in the air. Sunday, June 8th, the War at the Shore, sponsored by North Beach AC. For more information, visit AtlanticCityNorthBeach.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Before we check back on the text board, keep them coming in. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Eagles, training camp, OTAs, what? Well, you wouldn't have known it, by the way, how many Eagle players were out and about this weekend. I mean, holy Toledo. I mean, it felt like everyone on the Eagles was somewhere in South Jersey this weekend. If you didn't see the article at 973ESPN.com, Mike Gill posted earlier today. I mean, Cooper DeJean, he was bopping and bopping all over South Jersey. There's reports out there that he was hanging out in Margate and then Strathmere, multiple places, right? Nick Sirianni and his family were down in Avalon this weekend. Jordan Mailata ate over at the Nizams in Egg Harbor Township. So, Landon Dickerson was down in Stone Harbor. So there's a lot of guys hanging out this weekend. And you just got to wonder. Is OTAs an opportunity to maybe sweat out some of the adult beverages consumed? Well, the good news is if you look at some of the videos that have already been put out there from the first day of Eagles OTAs, it doesn't look like anyone's worse for wear out there. So, by the way, Howie Roseman was one of the two people throwing out the ceremonial first pitch. Didn't stand on the mound, but he did throw it out. I wrote an article yesterday at 973ESPN.com that Howie was one of two people who would be throwing out the first pitch today. The other one is Guy Gaudreau. For those who don't know, Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew, it's their father. The Gaudreau family lost their two sons last year due to a DUI accident over there in Salem County. The two young men, they're younger than me, so they're still young men to me. Two men who should never have died. The individual who was drinking and driving should not have been behind a wheel, or at least should have been pulled over long before it got to the point where he was in a position to kill anyone. But that's a conversation for another day. So Guy Gaudreau was the other one who threw out the first pitch. Howie Roseman and him both took turns throwing out the ceremonial first pitch before today's game. And I just want to remind everybody that with that in mind, before we get back to the Eagles, that there will be the first annual Gaudreau 5K. Okay? So for those who didn't hear about it, Guy Gaudreau was out there to let everybody know that the first inaugural Gaudreau Family 5K Run, Walk, and Family Day will be this Saturday, May 31st. The fundraising event will be held in honor of the memory of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. The Gaudreau family is raising money that will be used to build a playground for children with disabilities at Archbishop DeMino School. And the Phillies are giving Guy Gaudreau the platform to promote the Gaudreau family 5K run walk, which will be held at Washington Lake Park this Saturday in the memory of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. For those who remember the name Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey is arguably, if not the best, one of the best hockey players to ever come out of the state of New Jersey. So kudos to the Phillies for doing that today. But yes, Howie Roseman was a part of the pregame festivities by the Phils. And the Eagles were back in training camp today, and this is going to be a very interesting offseason because the Eagles are juggling two very interesting, distinct elements coming into this offseason. Number one, they are coming off of a championship. Well, the last time they won a championship, the only guys who were on that team were Jake Elliott and Lane Johnson. Right? Rick Lovato? That's it. Brandon Graham, he ain't here anymore. He retired. Rick Lovato was let go in free agency. They got a new long snapper now. So the only guys who can tell anybody in the locker room, what is it like? Well, it was Lane Johnson and Jake Elliott. Coaching staff, aside from Jeff Stoutland, pretty much an entirely different coaching staff. So there's almost nobody who can tell these guys what it's like to rebound after winning a championship. Now, some of the Georgia players can talk about what it was like to win a national title and have to bounce back. But winning a Super Bowl is very different. Longer seasons in the NFL, more intense games, higher level of play, and way more cameras and eyeballs focused on you. So I will be very, very, very curious to see how the Eagles handle this offseason. There's a lot of guys who you need to step up this upcoming year. Will Nolan Smith take the next step? What does Zach Bond look like in year 2 of this defense? How does Vic Fangio handle a defense that has gotten younger this offseason? Will Drew Makuba be the starting safety this year, or does that job go to Sidney Brown? By the way, Sidney Brown hanging out with Cooper DeJean in South Jersey over Memorial Day weekend. And on top of all of this, you look at the offense. Saquon Barkley rushed for over 2,000 rushing yards last year. It's very unlikely that he's going to do that again. You look at historically, the year after a guy rushes for 2,000 yards, there is always a drop-off the next year. Always. The only guy who got close was Barry Sanders years ago. He's the only guy who had a strong bounce back the next year. When Eric Dickerson set the record back in 1984, he rushed for 800 less yards the next year. Adrian Peterson, also 800 less yards. Jamal Lewis, 1,000 fewer yards. Derrick Henry, also over 1,000 fewer yards. Now, he got injured, so there's that point. Terrell Davis, he got injured. Major injury that was the beginning of the end of his career. Chris Johnson, he rushed for 700 fewer yards. O.J. Simpson, when he did it in 73, 74, he rushed for about 900 fewer yards. I mentioned Barry. Barry is the only guy who didn't have an incredible drop-off because he was less than 500. And To me, 500 is a number that's respectable. And I think that is what can be expected of Saquon Barkley. Saquon rushing for 2,000 yards, I genuinely believe that he's probably not going to get more than 1,500 or 1,600. Now, part of it is because of the 17-game schedule. He'll have more opportunities to rush for more yards. But I think just also teams are going to be planning to stop him. Teams are going to be loading up the box to stop him, to handle the Eagles in the run game. New offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo. What is he going to do his first year ever calling plays? Frankly, the fact that we haven't talked more about this offseason, to me, is kind of embarrassing. We have spent so much time talking about cornerback, safety, linebacker, Brandon Graham retiring. Hello? You have a guy who's never called plays at any level, at least with Brian Johnson a couple years ago. You had a guy who was an offensive coordinator in college. Kevin Patullo has never called plays anywhere before. And I'm just expecting him to just slide right in and be great automatically. I have no evidence or precedent for that. I don't care how much Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, the guys, love Kevin Patullo. You know, there's a lot of people who I like working with. But I don't want them doing every job. You know, Mike Gill and I have worked together now for, we're approaching 10 years overall. There are jobs that Mike Gill would never want me doing. It doesn't mean he doesn't have faith or belief in me. Doesn't mean he doesn't like me. It just means that he, as station manager, he says, Josh, I've worked you for a very long time. I know there's certain jobs you can do and certain jobs that may not be your strength. The fact that everybody is just A-OK with Kevin Patullo calling plays is either a sign that everyone knows something the rest of us don't, or the Eagles are in trouble to have a bit of a drop-off offensively. May I remind you, the 2024 Eagles were a team, for as dominant as they were not the greatest offense of all time. They were 7th in the NFL in scoring last year. Kellen Moore, you know the guy who got the head coaching job down in New Orleans? He got that job in part because the Eagles won a championship. And in part because Saquon Barkley had an historic season. But at the end of the day, Philadelphia was last in the NFL in pass attempts. That is the combined efforts of Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, and Tanner McKee. They were number 1 in the NFL in rush attempts. Now, I know that wasn't all Saquon, but a huge chunk of it was. Some of it was Jalen Hurts with the tush push and the quarterback sneaks in his own runs. By the way, Kenny Gainwell, he ain't here anymore. You may not remember that, but he's not. That split between last in the league in pass attempts and first in the league in rush attempts will not happen again this year. How will Kevin Patullo, in the first year as an offensive coordinator, deal with an offense that is not going to be able to replicate what we saw and heard last year? I think is the biggest storyline of this offseason. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up on the other side, what did this ESPN NBA insider say about the Sixers and their offseason? I'll tell you about it coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN.
Join us at Camp Edge in Alloway on Saturday, May 31st from 9 to 2 for the Ranch Hope Levi Baldwin Memorial Fishing Tournament and Family Fun Day. While fishing registration is closed, there's still plenty to enjoy, like food trucks, local vendors, outdoor activities, and more. Come celebrate the day by the lake and support Ranch Hope's mission to serve children, youth, and families from all over the state of New Jersey. Learn more at ranchhope.org.
It's time to make your yard the best on the block with Memorial Day savings at the Home Depot. Start by keeping the weeds at bay with Earthgrow mulch, now 4 for $10. Then keep your garden thriving with Miracle-Gro garden soil, now on special buy, 4 for $10. Give your neighbors yard envy all summer long with Memorial Day savings going on now at the Home Depot.
Huge news. Right now at Wendy's, you can get a Son of Baconator for just $3. I don't think you understand this situation. The Son of Baconator is only $3 for a limited time. You know, smoked bacon, rich melted cheese. That Son of Baconator is only $3. Thank you to whoever wished upon that star. For bacon that just won't quit, gotta be Wendy's.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii, not valid on a combo or on third-party delivery platforms.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
My car is making this noise. Sometimes it's like doot doot, and sometimes it's like grrr.
Do you have a dash light on?
Oh yeah.
Then we don't have to listen for clues. With the free Fix Finder service, we can read a check engine, ABS, or maintenance light to find the likely fix and even recommend a local shop if you need one.
So you don't need to hear the grrr.
Not with Fix Finder. Everything you need, nothing you don't.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
They say no two people learn the exact same way. So how did Babbel become the award-winning language learning app with over 16 million subscriptions sold? Well, we thought of you. All of you. Take Sierra. She's an artist and absolutely a visual learner. She's doing a deep dive into our Babbel wordplay videos.
Today I'll share a quick lesson on shopping in French.
Merci beaucoup. Malcolm is very much a type A, say it to my face, listening learner. So he checks with Babbel's speech recognition to make sure that accent?
Precio.
Keith's a real people person and a curious learner. So he loves Babbel's Culture Bites, full of insights and native knowledge about the language he's learning. Like what's served for Christmas dinner in Germany?
Glühwein, Weihnachtsgans und Christmasstollen.
Wherever you are, however you learn, Babbel is the best choice to break any language barrier. Save up to 50% on your Babbel subscription when you sign up at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Let's hear from Dan from EHT really quick at 609-403-0973. Mentioned about the Phillies' arms. He says Phillies do need arms to the bullpen, but don't forget they only go to a four-man rotation in the postseason. If the Phillies have Painter and Nola in Red October, they're going to have the extra arms they need. Well, the problem, Dan HC, is that who do you put in the bullpen? If we are assuming that your ace of your staff for Game 1 is Wheeler and Game 2 is Jose Luzardo, right? So if it's Luzardo Game 2, is it Ranger or Christopher Sanchez pitching Game 3 or 4? If Nola can get back on track, he's a pitcher. So either Sanchez or Suarez go the bullpen. And then how is Andrew Painter going to be coming out of a bullpen? That's something he's never done before. So there is still some question about what ifs. I'd rather get one more bullpen arm to add to the group heading into the postseason. All right, before we get out of here, ESPN NBA insider Shams Charania was on the Pat McAfee show, and he dropped this nugget, and I thought there was a lot he squeezed into this. Now, I preface this audio by saying Pat McAfee is very good at his job, but Pat McAfee is not the best at giving follow-up questions. Pat McAfee is here for a good time and not the real time at times. So I understand that when Shams Charania squeezed all of this into about 20 seconds, that McAfee maybe was a little too focused on something else and not enough of what Shams was saying. Take a listen.
Listen, if you have a chance to get Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have to look at something like that. Pick number 3 is Philadelphia. I think their goal is to draft at that pick. I think there's about 3 players they like at number 3, but they're going to get a ton of calls on number 3. That's a team with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George. They're trying to win the
suck, right?
well.
I don't know enough about the NBA. The Sixers are terrible. Not supposed to be.
They need Joel Embiid to be healthy on the floor.
So there's a bunch he squeezed in there. Number one, he only gets to the Sixers after he drops that little nugget about Giannis, right? That if you're a team and you can get Giannis, you got to do it. Well, the news came out today that Giannis is still not met with the Milwaukee Bucks about his future. So Giannis himself has not officially asked for a trade out of Milwaukee just yet. That's number one. Number two, he says a lot of teams are going to call Philadelphia about the 3rd overall pick. So Philadelphia's intention may be to keep the pick and take a player. But if other teams come along and give you a big enough offer, can Daryl Morey in Philadelphia really say no? And the third part of it, he says, the Sixers need Joel Embiid on the floor if they're going to win. If Joel Embiid has a good recovery this offseason, if he is back to being anywhere close to MVP caliber Joel Embiid next season, that changes the fortunes of this team exponentially. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm Josh Hennick here on 97.3 ESPN Live in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. Pacers Knicks coming up tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City. A community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It's time to make your yard the best on the block.